Video game mods, one of the best things in gaming, in my opinion at least. I mean, just picture yourself. You're playing your favorite video game, and after some time, you realize you've done everything there was to do, or got bored of it. What's the point of playing it if you're not having any fun playing it anymore? That's when you discover the often huge amount of mods that people make out of the love they have for a game. This is where you can find pretty much anything to make any game life almost infinite. Think of games like Hollow Knight, The Binding of Isaac, Balatro, and of course, the topic of this video, Lethal Company. I'm sure it needs no introduction. You and your fellow employees go from moon to moon collecting scrap that you bring to a building called the company. You sell it, the quota increases, and so on and so forth, until you can't keep up with the increasing quota and get fired. As much as I enjoyed the base game, you realize after a while there's nothing left to do. You've explored all the moons, got the high quotas a couple of times, but except a funny clip that happens with friends from time to time, had gone pretty stale. At least that's how I felt about the game until I found out about Wesley's moons, an immense mod that has a sort of, as Wesley, the creator of this mod, puts it, a roguelike adventure through a vast collection of moons, where you progressively unlock moons by following different storylines of characters throughout your journey. By the way, did I mention that there are 28 new moons? That's almost triple the base game, with each of them having a unique set of scrap fitting with the moon, and lore often connecting them to different ones. It's also recommended to play with the Wesley's interior, which adds 4 new ones, but I won't go in them in details in this video. What I'm trying to say is that I adore this mod. I want to talk about it to give it the love it deserves. And I will do that by talking about every single moon. You heard me right. Every single moon. And I will try to do it in order of the story, if there even is a story order. Because in this mod slash story slash roguelike adventure, or whatever you want to call it, there are 3 main story paths and a lot of side moons with their own shorter stories. So that's why I'm going to do the 3 main paths one at a time in this video, so that you, the viewer, have an easier time understanding what's happening and don't have to bring out a whole goddamn whiteboard for this video. So I've decided the order of the moons will be Galetry, Acidir 13, Junic, Etern, Polarus, Calist, Infernis, Acidir, Cosmocos, Motra, Oldred, Trite, Filitrios, Demetrica, Higgs, and Empra. The other 12 moons will be in their own video. Well, we're gonna be here for a while, so grab a snack, some soda, and a fresh bag of grated Parmesan cheese. And let's get started. Galetry is the start of our journey. It is basically the gorgeous slash company building of this mod, where you can go to sell your scrap at the end of each quota. Though instead of being a giant grey building in the middle of the sea, this one is a nice, relaxing art museum with paintings of already existing and new moons. It also has a small shop filled with random stuff, ranging from Lethal Company minifigurines, a nuke on a stick, and of course, a human heart. But the real point of this moon is to be the beginning of your adventure, where you unlock your first moons and learn how to find the rest. The way you unlock moons in this mod is by finding tape recordings on moons by following a usually illuminated side path. After finding the audio tape, you can then record them in the log translator next to your ship that appears on each Wesley moon. But on Galetry, you can find hidden videotapes scattered around the museum, which you can use on the VHS player at the top of the stairs, which will play a video related to the moon it unlocks. Videotapes are usually found as very rare random scrap on certain moons and are mostly reserved to the side moons. Oh, I almost forgot that there was a secret room under the stairs, but that's not important, right? Well, just keep it in the back of your head for now. Anyway, there is a tape to begin each of the 3 paths, like this one for example.
This tape contains highly classified material and must not see the eyes of the public. A hidden bioweapon testing facility has been discovered on the 13th asteroid orbiting with E6 Bow. You have been tasked to find and extract what remains of the weapons tested here.
Time to start with the real first moon of this mod. Acidir 13 was a bioweapon testing facility. Until some unknown time ago, the facility seemed to have been burned down from the inside, which left the already barren and empty moon in an even more abandoned state, with most of the fire exits unusable since there seems to still be things burning inside. This moon is extremely dark. Fortunately, the outside lights still function. Kinda. On arrival and sometimes throughout the day, the lights will cease to work and you will have to manually turn them back on by using the outside light switch near your ship. With no nature on this moon, only non-organic creatures could survive here. This often means the only threat you will face on this moon will be coil heads, inside and outside. Thus, we can assume that they were manufactured and tested here. Near the entrance of the facility, we will find an audio tape of the character of this path.
I am Jeffrey Samuel Smith, agent and high commander working directly for the Emperor. This will be my final message. Until recent, I have believed that my actions since the Calist under command of the Emperor were for some greater good. I was led to believe that all the sacrifices made were with purpose. Yet, they were in vain. It wasn't until I had lost all that I had left in my world when I realized. I now find myself here to execute one final mission. One of my own. Over the past few months, we have been collecting the many experimental bioweapons that were created because of me. I made them believe we got them to study them further, make them more dangerous. That's what the Emperor would have wanted. But I will no longer follow the wishes of that man. He sits on his golden throne while everyone else suffers by his command. I should have done something when he told me to give the order. I should have executed him right then and there. Back in the labs, I smashed the glass containers for Bio-HX-NV7, the deadliest weapon we have. It will hopefully kill or convert most of the people here. These loyal rats who think they're on the winning side. There is no winning side. And I'll make sure nobody will escape this place. Nobody will use these atrocities to further this pointless hell. I called for a facility-wide decontamination. And all of it will burn!
Jeffrey was responsible for the making of the bioweapons and was the one that caused the fire. But because this is his last tape, and him mentioning this to be his final mission, making it out in time wasn't in his plan. We are also missing a lot of context of what led up to this. Who is the Emperor? Why did he want all those bioweapons made? What did Jeffrey sacrifice to drive him mad? Though this does unlock the next moon, where we might find further context on Jeffrey's past and motives. Inside this facility you will find a lot of office supplies like folders or staplers. But what I want to focus on are the documented experiments you can find, detailing their usefulness in chemical warfare and if they could be weaponized or not. Most of them also come from other moons, like hyperacid from Acidir, that in high enough quantity can easily melt your whole body in a mere second, or the golden dagger from Junic, which seems to choose a host, making that person chant strange words and drawing symbols on the floor. But the most interesting log is the one about a strange liquid called Bio-HX-NV7, originating from Cosmocos. It seems that upon touch, it will make the subject aggressive and deformed looking. Another subject was injected with Bio-HX-NV7, making his flesh melt with the room before turning into stone. Only about 4 minutes after will he lose consciousness, making this a gruesome way to go out. The log ends with something causing a Bio-HX-NV7 outbreak, presumably Jeffrey, causing the facility to take drastic measures and burning the whole facility to avoid the liquid from spreading to the outside world. I find this one to be one of the weaker moons in this mod, since the outside is just grey rocks and craters, but the broken coil heads scatter around are a nice touch. This moon does make the inside way less visible to give an upper hand to the coil heads, which just makes it very annoying. Still a cool looking effect though. Junic is a luscious jungle moon where multiple strange cults have been spotted. They seem to talk to themselves a lot in some unknown language, and they might be related to the temples and pentagrams found here. As for the outside wildlife on this moon, it is home to carnivorous plants that like to disguise themselves as red flowers to catch anyone unlucky enough to pass by it off guard. Do also watch out for any falling tree or pile of rocks, because you will need to find an alternative way back if your path gets blocked. There's a little light trail next to your ship that leads us to our next tape.
Last night, I heard the news. The cities of Trite have been made one with the ground. They bombed almost the entire moon! And now, they're laying waste to whomever survived the attack. I sent out many messages to ask for my family. The Emperor has refused to answer. How weird, I thought. But oh, those left on Trite sure answered. They told me there were no reports of anyone arriving from Calist before or after the catalyst. My family, my children, my Maddie, they never even left in the first place. No effort was made to even try to get them out of there in time. But the Emperor has been lying to me! He has been lying to me since the very start of this hell. I thought he may have had it all planned out, but this grand war, all that I have done, I should never have trusted him. I am ceasing the operations here, and I'll be moving into my final mission. But I won't be following his plans. Agent G, signing off.
From what we are given, there seems to be a war going on between the Emperor and someone else, causing planets like Trite to be destroyed, killing potentially millions of people. Jeffrey deciding to help the Emperor on a mission in exchange of the safety of his family. But it doesn't look like the Emperor kept his end of the deal, leaving Jeffrey's family and other residents to die on Calist. Inside the temples, we can find notes scattered around written by Desmond. For those who don't know or forgot, in the base game you can find messages left by an old crew of this ship, one of them being Desmond. He talks about finding a golden mask and dagger inside the temple and lending it to one of his crewmates, Jack, to analyze them. Jack never let go of the dagger for the rest of the day. Desmond, being justifiably weirded out, wanted to examine it on his own, and thus waited for Jack to fall asleep. But to his surprise, the dagger was way too heavy for a normal human to carry. The next morning, Jack arrived covered in blood while holding the mask to his face and the dagger in the other, while chanting in some forgotten language, and proceeded to leave to somewhere in the jungle. A note can also be found translating the strange language used by Jack. Quote, "For one to get life, one must take it. To strike a deal with the devils of Junic, a symbol must be drawn with the blood of two. Their presence pointing at the center of power. Only then will you be rewarded. Let the blade be your guide." Unquote. The blade seems to corrupt the first bearer of it to sacrifice two other people so that they could be rewarded by the devils residing on Junic. Etern is a desert moon home to a gigantic lab now known as the Death Lab. It got its name after the experiments created on this moon took over, killing anyone on sight. Those experiments being the Nutcrackers and the Masked. And I mean it, this place is infested with them. If you're not drowning in a sea of mass, those double-barreled sharpshooters will manage to end your existence from across the map. And if that's not enough, the giant roaming outside will certainly make you regret even thinking of landing on this moon. So yeah, I think the name Death Lab is pretty fitting. If you somehow manage to survive until 5, this moon will use its last trick up its sleeve, starting a countdown to a nuclear bomb that when it explodes will leave behind a massive cloud that makes it incredibly hard to see outside, with the fact that it's already mostly dark outside. Good luck avoiding nutcrackers after that. Anyway, enough whining. Bring in the next tape.
It's been over 120 days since my meeting on Polarus, and the devastating catalyst of this grand war we now find ourselves in. As we had foreseen, The military of Titan was not pleased with the initial attack, and launched a counterattack within the same week. It only escalated from there. However, I'm pleased to report that my family, my wife, and my children have all safely made it to Trite, as promised. I do hope the trip wasn't as bad as mine have been. They were moved in secrecy for their own protection, so unfortunately I'm unable to contact them. At least, that's what I was told when I tried my hardest to do so. Maybe it's for the better. I have only a few more missions to complete before I can visit my family again. Speaking of which, the teams we send out to Cosmocos have vanished, and so has the entire moon. It vanished from the radars entirely, which seems impossible, and yet is true. This happened only days after they found something incredible that would have been the key to our victory. All that returned was a confused and mad Commander Cunningham, who supposedly tried to sabotage the operations, and a large amount of so-called cosmic growth. Anyways, I have been tasked to guide a group of scientists here with the creation of manipulative weapons using the aforementioned cosmic growth. They'll grow into the brain of whoever it will be applied to, and will supposedly have full control over them. Think of it as a mind-controlling parasite. It will hopefully aid us in this war. And once that's done, I will vanish in the night for my next task. Agent G, signing off.
Jeffrey's mission was to create advanced weapons and machines for the war, and is working on it here in Etern. He also talks about Cosmocos disappearing and Commander Cunningham returning from there. But we'll talk about that once we get to Cosmocos. All that's important now is the weaponizing of the cosmic growth, being a sort of mind-controlling parasite, probably used for the making of the Nutcracker, but not a lot is explained about that. Tapes of an old scientist can also be found inside the lab, that were recorded before and during the incident.
Yep, 154, day 136. Business as usual. Project Nutcracker is well on the way. These droids are getting more advanced by the day, especially since Joffrey joined us a week ago. Great stuff. Me out. Yeah, 154, day 139. Giants are still as prevalent as always. We've started to experiment with emotional manipulation alongside Project Nutcracker. We just need the proper item to bind it to. Me out. Yeah, 154, day 146. We used masks. Big mistake. They seem to get stuck to their wearers. No other side effects have been noted. I haven't seen it myself, but I've heard Project Nutcracker was a success. It sounds like they're actually alive. We also noticed that Joffrey went missing recently. We are looking into that. Me out. Yeah, 154, day 15 something. I am on the run. Those masks took them. They're not them anymore. They took my team, converted half of them. The Nutcrackers are not droids like I thought. I saw one of them. It shot me right in the chest before I got here. I'm bleeding out. I think the Nutcrackers, they're my co-workers, or what's left of them. I think those masked men, I think they...
The comment referring to the Nutcrackers being co-workers may imply that there might have been a usage of Bio-HX and V7 in the process of creating the Nutcrackers, melting them with the co-workers, explaining the flesh and aggressivity, though if it was Jeffrey's doing or not isn't explained. Polarus is a snow moon which has a massive vault constructed inside of the icy hills, filled with diamonds, glowing crystal, and other valuable loot. It is also the home of a beast resembling a giant worm that aggressively digs around, looking for its next prey to feed upon. Its erratic and unpredictable movement causes the nearby ice to break and shift around. Even inside the deeper parts of the vault can you hear its growls. There's also a lake with floating ice platforms to go across. Behind the ship you can find one of Jeffrey's tape, but also one of Cunningham's, but I'll keep that one for when we are doing her side of the story.
I did not expect this meeting to go the way it did. While I tried to educate the Emperor on the matters back at the Grand Capital, he seemed uninterested and looked at me with a rather lifeless expression. I explained how the Council of Rule is very adamant about not allowing any bioweapons to be used or studied. But then he told me he wanted me to... The Triton military will decimate the Grand Capital as well as the moon it sits on. This will be soon, on the day of the final conference, Judgment Day. And he wanted me to give the order. This will be the catalyst of a region-wide war. Yet I did as he asked. I gave the order in the name of the Emperor. This means I will not be returning home, and I was promised that my family will be moved to Trite to keep them safe from what's about to come. I hope to see them soon. Soon, I will be off to 61 March, where I will prepare 3 groups of scientists to set course for the mysterious moon of 42 Cosmocos, in hopes of finding something to aid us in the upcoming war against the Dominions who will oppose the Triton military and the Emperor. This will not be pleasant, but I am ready. Agent G, signing off.
The catalyst of this grand war that was referred to multiple times before was the destruction of the Grand Citadel, situated on Calist. The Council of Rules didn't agree with the unethical way of using bioweapons for the war, so they ended up getting dunked on pretty hard by the Emperor's army from Trite, forcing Jeffrey to give the order to try and take the blame off his shoulders. One of the 3 scientists tasked with investigating Cosmocos for the war was Cunningham. She's also the only one who came back from the mission from what we know. Inside the vault you can find undelivered letters from a worker to his family, talking about how he enjoys the calmness of his job and how comfortable the apartment he was given is. On his last note he talks about how happy he is that after a month of working he can finally go back to visit his family. At least, that's what he was told. Throughout the weeks he talks about how people often get fired before even a month has gone by, never hearing of them again. He also talks about the loud growling he hears underneath the ice, being told that it's just the ice shifting, even though he's sure it's some kind of beast. Well, the good news is that they do keep the giant worm under control from destroying the whole place. The bad news is that this has a love for human meat, explaining the high number of fired people and why the notes were undelivered. That's why you never take a job that's too good. You never know if a man-eating world might be behind it. Calist is the location of the Great Citadel, or at least was. Since the Catalyst, this once grand planet, with its vast population and golden rivers, is but an asteroid floating in space amongst the debris and buildings. With the capital being mostly destroyed, not a lot of value can still be found inside of it. Only mundane supplies like computers and potted plants can still be collected. Buildings seem to still be crashing against the asteroids, meaning that you will have to watch out for floating buildings if you don't want to end up impaled. Jeffrey's first tape and one of his undelivered letters can be found here.
We're now 4 weeks into the debate, meaning next week will be the final and deciding council conference. While the Council of Rule is still highly against the study and use of biological warfare, there must be a way to convince them otherwise. I understand that it's a very dangerous idea which, in theory, could ruin more lives than I can count, as well as cause a financial catastrophe within this region. But I trust the Emperor knows this, and I am sure he has a plan which I will be made aware of soon. He does not sit upon the throne without reason. After this log, I might write a letter to my wife Madeline, as I'll be leaving 235 Calist the next morning for a meeting with the Emperor. I hope to find some clarity about his plans to better structure our case. Agent G, signing off.
Now that we have all the tapes, we can finally put the story of Jeffrey in order. Jeffrey Samuel Smith, one of the Emperor's scientists working on bioweapons and machines for the war, was sent by the Emperor to try and convince the Council of Rule on Calist to allow the use of the bioweapons. But when the Council opposed the views of the Emperor, he decided to convince Jeffrey to destroy the planet they resided on in exchange of the safety of his family by moving them to Trite. Jeffrey then went on to continue working on the bioweapons on Asteroid 13 and the Etern, also sending a team of scientists to Cosmocos to retrieve something to further their research. Only about half a year later, after hearing that Trite has been completely destroyed, did he decide to look into what happened to his family, finding out they never even left Calist, meaning that the empty promises of the Emperor caused Jeffrey to give the order that killed his family. Jeffrey couldn't live with himself anymore, not after learning that. So he decided to gather all the bioweapons he made on Asteroid 13 and burn the facility down, so that he and his inventions wouldn't harm any innocent civilian ever again. Reports and statements can still be found inside the Citadel, written by a man called Michael Dunton, one of the members of the Council. Being against the use of bioweapons, he stated that the last time a bioweapon was used during a war, thousands of defenseless families were killed, and thus should never be used again. After the meeting, he heard the Emperor talk to someone else in a dark room. He called him the Overseer. He also mentions that the Emperor talked with a very monotone voice. This probably means that the Emperor is being controlled in some way, since this is not the first time that he has been described as monotone or lifeless. Maybe like a controlling parasite, perhaps. Anyway, Michael decided to write a resignation letter, since he feels that the fate of the war is out of their hand and fearing the worst of what might happen next. This leaves us with not a lot of info about the Emperor and his plan, but don't worry, we still have 2 paths to go, to hopefully give us a bigger picture of what might be happening.
Tape 1, Infernis. This is Captain Commander Cunningham. I've decided to start recording our sites of research and the environments we find ourselves in. Our current location is Infernus. This fiery hellscape has done nothing but slow us down.
Infernus is a volcanic moon with an active volcano that constantly spews out balls of rock and lava. The extremely high temperature makes it uninhabitable for most creatures, causing mostly bugs and giants to live here. A mining operation was started here to collect its precious resources, but was abandoned pretty quickly. Make me wonder why they even thought that constructing a mine next to a volcano was a good idea in the first place. Even though it is abandoned, it still serves as a nice home for the bugs and insects residing on its moon. And if you are scared of spiders, then this might not be your favorite moon. But don't worry, there's always a solution to a problem. This is also where you can find the character of this path, Cunningham's first recorded log.
Captain's log, log 1. Location, Infernus. Still no information on the whereabouts of Cosmocos after its unusual disappearance. 32 of us on the ground and found nothing of note. We'll be leaving shortly due to dangerous conditions. As if no one could have seen that coming. Stepping off this ship was like walking into an oven. I am still struggling to recall any of the knowledge I possessed on Cosmocos, but there is something still urging me to continue in my pursuits. Next point of interest is the so-called Death Labs on Etern. Not an exciting prospect for the team, but they will manage. After that, Acidir, to investigate the fantastically named Crescent of Curses, hoping it leads us in the direction of its true origins. This is Cunningham, signing off.
Commander Cunningham is a researcher of some sort, investigating and exploring strange or unknown moons. This first recording is taking place after a return from Cosmocos, as you can assume from Jeffrey's tapes. She seems to have had an accident on or when leaving Cosmocos, causing her to forget almost everything that happened on there. She wants to go back, but can't, since after her return, Cosmocos mysteriously disappeared. So she decides to continue her research on Infernis, with Etern and Acidir being next. In the deep hole where the mining is taking place, can you find mostly burned off notes of a previous miner working here. It turns out the volcano was dead when they started their operation, only becoming active after they started mining near it. As written in one of the notes, quote, "The volcano was supposed to be dead, at least that's what they told us. Any poor soul out there is currently being fried in the fiery rains of death. If you don't call in rescue, we might not see the light of day again." Unquote. The rest of the notes explain that they managed to call in rescue on one of the emergency services centers situated on Polarus. While waiting for the rescue to arrive, most of the workers waiting defenselessly in the mines were killed, being stabbed by giant spiders, or in some worse cases, investigating a vent that turned out to be infested with bees, ending up with swarms of bees digging into your eye sockets. Truly horrifying, making the atrocious heat the least of their worries. Acidir is a swampy moon with lakes of acid. It is also the home of a group of rich artifact collectors who reside in a massive mansion that is now slightly tilted. The resident seems to have died or gone missing after a curse called the Crescent of Curses fell onto this place, probably originating from one of the cursed artifacts they decided to keep here. You can also find a surprising amount of bones like rib cages from the people unlucky enough to have fallen into the lake. The fish bones found here might imply that the lake wasn't always filled with acid.
Captain's log. Log 3. Location, Acidir. I've hardly had a moment to record my findings. Navigating Etern was a nightmare with those bloody nutcrackers roaming the desert. We were down to a crew of 26 after that veritable screw-up, and I'm afraid things have only gotten worse since we arrived on Acidir. But first, my findings on Etern. A silver lining. I recovered a log from the corpse of a scientist pertaining to Cosmocos' location. It seems that he created some sort of AI for the sole purpose of retrieving these coordinates. Unfortunately, the AI seems to malfunction while reciting them. Certainly, it's some system error in the madman's machine. Most definitely. But for some reason, it feels to me that Cosmocos does not want to be found. And yet, the more I recall, the more intense my desire becomes to try and locate it. To see the way the walls of crystal shimmer in the light of those strange bulbs that hang from the trees. I know that my dreary mind couldn't create things of such beauty of its own accord. I'm far too boring for that. Nevertheless, I left a log with the rising map on Atlantica, and I've discovered that the sixth letter of the coordinates is a lowercase z. 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 We will soon be leaving Acidir. I hope. 5 went mad after coming into contact with the Crescent of Curses and decided to go for a swim with the local pond life. 3 ran screaming to the woods. It's been hours since we saw them. The ship will fly soon when the conditions become too dangerous. If they're not back before then. Our next destination is Polarus. This was the closest moon to Cosmocos before its disappearance. We'll stop by Grata in lieu of the ramblings in the scientist's log. This is Cunningham, signing off.
This being Cunningham's third log and there being none of her logs on Etern means that there might have been a deviation of Empra and detour to some other moon either when they were going to or leaving Etern. That moon being Atlantica. Cunningham continues her research of Cosmocos through a map she found on Atlantica and a small part of the coordinates on Ether which she heard in one of the scientist's tapes. The tape also mentions Guatara, which may help her get closer to Cosmocos' location. Anyway, back to Acidir. A couple of crew members that came into contact with the Crescent of Curses ended up going mad and running into the lake of wood while screaming. Whatever this curse is doing to their brain, it must be pretty bad if that's their reaction. Lost notes inside the mansions describe the events that occurred after the arrival of the Crescent Curse, describing how it seems to send out auras which messes with the brain, making people lose their mind. The water filter also broke, which led a clueless resident of the mansion to take a quite fatal bath. He also talks about the increasing number of skeletons at the bottom of the acidic lake, and how he's starting to see things distort around him like hallways expanding. His final note is mostly gibberish, with the word curse written over and over again. But there is one somewhat Korean phrase stating, quote, "It is coming, the big eye in the sky, it sees us all," unquote. But those are just the rambling from a crazy guy, so I'm sure it's nothing to worry about.
Captain's log, log 4, location, Polarus. First, my findings on Greta. We managed to trick that conniving AI into revealing a final letter to us. It's P. It's a capital P. It's smart, but we were smarter. Ones of us that survived, anyway. I think it realized we were deceiving it, and it decimated 10 of us. We're down to a pathetic team of 8, half of whom are too disturbed to carry on their duties as usual. Our skeleton crew might be real skeletons soon enough. But I only need them to help pilot the ship for the last leg of the journey. Because I found it. I know where Cosmocos is. I wonder if it felt the same loss that I felt when I left. Like my heart was wrenched from my chest. To get to know something, someone so magnificent. To know that you leave them blighted, wounded and sick. I'll be with you soon, old friend. I'll heal you. I only need the opportunity. And then we'll be one again. Cunningham, signing off.
Cunningham managed to finally find Cosmocos and seems to talk about it like an old friend. Like it's an actual being that can have connections and feel emotions, which is quite peculiar, but a moon can't be alive. That's ridiculous. It is in fact alive. Here we are at Cosmocos, also known as the Lost Moon. Where do I even start with this complicated mess? Well, as I already said, this moon is indeed alive, meaning that's not a moon? Question mark? Anyway, for starters, this does explain why and how it disappears, since it's most likely able to move on its own. The outside of Cosmocos is quite dark, with blue light bulbs looking flowers showing you the way, which you will need to follow because every time you will want to come back here, the path will change. There are also floating eyeballs of some sort inside the research facility that was built here. These eyeballs closely resembling the cosmic growth. They will damage you if you end up in their line of sight, probably as a sort of defense mechanism. You can find a couple of tapes from Cunningham when she originally arrived here in the first place, but I will shorten it for you people watching since all the tape together almost add up to 10 minutes. So in short summary, Cunningham arrived here with a team of scientists under the leadership of a man called Captain Donahue. As she first touched the planet, she felt something weird, like she was feeling the incredible knowledge of the planet. understanding that this planet isn't a planet, but some kind of alien being when they discover its cosmic brain. Cunningham and Cosmocos developed an emotional bond for the short time they were together. But the rest of the crew didn't feel the same way, wanting to extract the brain and bring it to 61 March to try and comprehend its vast knowledge. Cunningham didn't agree with that plan. If this was to go through, it would most certainly kill Cosmocos. But Donahue didn't care, only caring about the scientific revolution they might partake in if they managed to transfer all of its knowledge to themselves. Maybe the anger and disappointment Cunningham felt against the rest of her crew were also Cosmocos' emotions being expressed through her. We can also find Cunningham's tape from when she finally managed to come back.
Long time no see, old friend. You gave me a real runaround, didn't you? Going off the radar like that. You teleported yourself nearly 800 million miles away. I didn't even know you could do that. You are full of wonders. You didn't want to hurt them, did you, friend? You did everything you could not to kill them. You wanted so dearly to see them learn and grow and help each other. I feel it. I know. They're still out there, though, aren't they? That's them. Lurking in the shadows. They're protecting you now. I want to protect you, too. If you'll let me. No one will ever hurt you again. Not while I'm around.
Cosmocos managed to stop the scientists from extracting its brain. How it did that is unknown for now, but it is implied it was forced to use violence to some degree to survive, which might be related to the Bio-HXNV7 that was found on this moon. In conclusion, Cosmocos is an alien resembling a planet with knowledge beyond our comprehension, that simply wants to spread its knowledge for the people that discover it, but was forced to hide itself after almost being killed by a power-hungry scientist which only saw its kindness as something they could exploit for their own benefit. That one sure was one hell of a doozy, but I'm sure it can't get more complicated than this. Anyway, on to the last bat.
Hi, it's Harry with Mighty Mortar. It's like a mortar, but it's a mortar. Mordor wouldn't get fallen with this mortar. Regular defenses don't work well. People get their houses broken into all the time. Burglars, thieves, your neighbors, nosy-ons, crazy exes, giant bees, Nintendo. Not even I will be able to break in with this thing in your backyard.
Motra is a mountainous moon, closely orbiting another moon that we'll talk about later. Prisoners were sent to the secure prison located at the top of one of the mountains. They also installed 2 mortars next to the prison to stop any escapees from leaving. Once landed, these mortars will try to target you at a somewhat inconsistent rate. Thankfully, there is a lever on the side of the mountain that disables them for the day, though the long path there and the rusty lever might waste some precious time out of your day. Nothing of real note can be found here, just helmets, journals and cell keys. There is a radio left behind at one of the outside posts.
Hello everyone, this is your favourite radio speaking from
Across the Star.
The time is currently 11:13 AM and it looks like the weather is quite upset today, but let's not let that ruin our Mondays, eh? Unfortunately, I have to be the bearer of bad news. We have had reports of an attack that happened on the grand capital of Calist. Now, as of now, we are unsure of the severity of the attacks, but we will give you more information as the story progresses. In other news, the nuclear power plants in the C sector of Fission have been closed down due to a failure to meet safety regulations. Thank God for that. That place sounded like you'd be going green from simply being there. There have also been construction sightings on the moon of Oldred, which is, that's an interesting one considering it's about the single worst place to build literally anything. Either way, that is it for me. I've got some classic hits lined up for you for your usual Monday madness, so stay tuned and thank you for listening to
Across the Star.
This recording takes place not long after Jeffrey gave the order to destroy Calist, meaning that this time we will see the events from the perspective of an innocent bystander. He talks about the at the time current event that happened in Fission C and Oldred, with the former being closed down for safety reasons and the latter being our next destination, where something was built, presumably for the war. Not a lot to say about this moon, but still a fun one. Oldred is home to a massive oil extracting site that was most likely constructed to fund the war. The moon wasn't industrialized in the past because of its boiling oil and very fragile outer shell that can easily break, spewing even more oil to the surface. Since this was quickly constructed at the beginning of the war, they wanted this to be as efficient as possible at extracting lots of oil to sell, meaning that safetiness was mostly ignored. Lots of people had to work in these unlivable conditions for months, usually dying to unsafe machinery or by developing lung cancer, with most people having to stay since they have no other way to provide for their families. Transcripts from interviews with employees of the site describe their awful working conditions, from the fact that there is only one medkit to the bodies floating in the oil for days. There were also core heads and oil birds situated here, alongside explosive mines on the inside, in case they would be attacked. But it's fair to assume that fighting on a very unstable planet isn't the best idea. The moon is now covered in oil as a consequence of the war, with geysers of oil starting and stopping at random. There is a red button at the back of the main building, but I'll let you look at it yourself.
You are now listening to
Across the Stars.
I'm your favourite radio host, and I'm here with your 11 AM news. On time for a change. It looks like our Thursday will be sunny with little clouds in the sky, which is always nice after the amount of storms we've been having. And just like the past few weeks, the war is still raging on. We don't see it ending anytime soon with how things are currently going. In fact, the new factories on Oldred are doing nothing but throwing more gas on the fire, as if the Inferno isn't large enough. Cities are burning. And for what? Surely not for sticks and marshmallows. I bring good news too, though. There have been talks of a safe place away from the war. A place to hide out until this nightmare is over. Somewhere to live. The domes of Demetrica. Well, sadly, I am out of time. I have got some more hits coming up for you, though, to fill your day-to-day work schedule, so stay tuned, and thank you for listening to
Across the Stars.
It seems that the employees weren't the only people who weren't the biggest fan of the extraction site, but most civilians were also not too pleased with it, seeing it only as a tool to prolong the war. But there seems to be domes on a planet called Demetrica that were built to protect the innocent bystanders of the war, meaning that people who could afford it could flee there for safety. We finally arrive at the city of Trite, at least what's left of it after the war against the Dominions. The city is now dead empty and covered in sand and ashes, since nobody takes care of it anymore. Lots of buildings have collapsed because of the bombardments that happened here. The streets are still covered with mostly broken turrets, but will turn back on if you accidentally walk under one of the security lamps that still look out for any attackers. Lots of posters can still be found in the streets, encouraging civilians to either join the troops of the Triton army or to flee to the domes of Demetrica for safety. The central building of the city is extremely tall and has somehow survived the war, only slightly bending. Side note, when leaving through one of the fire exits of the building, you will have to watch your step, because I don't think one of them is very safe to exit by. Inside the buildings, you will mostly find stuff left by people who fled and couldn't take with them, like toasters and microwaves. There are also robots placed inside that produce classical music through a gramophone, meant to lure people so that they can produce a powerful flash when they are close enough that instantly kills them. It is unknown which army used these robots, but they were either used against the people attacking Trite to distract them from killing innocent civilians, or, in a darker way, were used to kill the unsuspecting civilians still hiding inside the buildings. And if that wasn't sad enough, you can also find children's drawing, depicting their happy lives, the war, their losses, and their escape. Also showing that coil heads were used to kill civilians. You can find another radio next to one of the tilting buildings.
This is
Across the Star.
back with the 11-ish AM news. I'm a little late today. There's a lot to catch up on nowadays. It's been a cloudy week, and it looks like it'll be cloudy for a little while longer. The reports have not been great, quite the opposite in fact. If you haven't heard it already, Trite has suffered its most devastating attack yet. The cities have fallen, and I'll repeat it one more time for you. The cities of Trite have fallen. According to my sources, most of the people were able to flee in time. I wish I could say I know what will happen next, but I can't. What the Triton military will do next is a complete mystery. All I can say is go to the domes of Demetrica and survive. That is it from me. We've got some comforting tunes coming up, so please stay tuned. And for those still listening, thank you.
The radio host, still trying to keep a smile to cheer up the people listening, announces the loss of Trite and his fallen residents, while continuing to encourage people to leave for Demetrica as soon as possible.
Do you like toys? Do you like fun? Do you like... Here at Filitrios, we have all the toys you could imagine. Robots! Puzzle cubes! Locomotives! And now, for a limited time only, you can get your very own home security nutcracker. If you call the number on your screen right now, you can get your very own toy shotgun included free of charge. Only available with supply batteries not included. Each couple separate, not for children under the age of 13.
Filitrios closely orbits Motra, explaining their similar mountainous terrain. It is also home to two important buildings, the giant Filitrios toy store and the studio from Across the Stars. The toy store was very popular amongst the people and children on this planet before it shut down. Through a newspaper, we find out that the toy store had a variant shroud infestation around it that attracted kidnapper foxes that liked to prey on children that went to the store alone and unsupervised. An autopsy of one of the killed children shows that the victim were dragged along the floor before being aggressively mauled by the kidnapper foxes, leaving only parts of the victim behind, meaning that families had to put lots of missing posters throughout the cities before finding their bodies. This led to a lot of backlash against the toy store, since the company didn't do anything about the vein shroud infestation. They eventually had to close the store due to them being charged with neglect for the vein shroud, and maybe also for the fact that they sold nutcrackers and shotguns to children. In front of the toy store, there is a bridge that leads to the studio from Across the Stars. It seems to have been left in quite an awful state. The final recorded message can be found in the recording booth.
Hello everyone, you're listening to Across the Stars, and I'd like to apologise for my absence in the past few days. Times are tough currently. It's currently 2:23 PM. I'm sorry to announce this will be my final broadcast. My sources are dwindling, and finding any good news it's like searching for a needle in a haystack. There's just not much good out there anymore. It's all terrible. For those of you still out there, I'm telling you, leave. Find the closest people to you and go. Go to the domes. There will be salvation on Demetrica. I will be going too. The Triton military has been growing in numbers, and they'll launch a system-wide attack to conquer our side of the region. I don't want anyone to experience the horrors of what that will bring. So I'm telling you again, leave. Run to the domes. We will be now going dark. This was Across the Stars. Thank you. I'll see you there.
The ongoing war is only getting worse and worse. Not even the radio hosts can find joy anymore, playing anybody that is still listening to go to Demetrica to find salvation. He's also going, meaning that he won't be hosting anymore. But this does mean that we will finally reach our destination, where we can meet all of the billions of people that managed to survive and escape from the war, showing us that even through dark times, it is important to keep your chin up and not lose hope. Here we are at the domes of Demetrica, a safe refuge from the war. I think the footage that I showed was pretty clear that this was all just a lie. It turns out that the domes weren't safe, livable places, but instead slaughterhouses for humans, making this extremely dark and depressing considering how many innocent families fled to here. This was probably built by the Dominions. We don't know a lot about them, but they seem to not only want to take over the planets, but eradicate every single person they come across, leading me to believe that they might not be very human. There are pipes on the side of the domes that serve to throw away the human remains to the bottom of the sea. When looking out at the bloodied sea, you can see that there were more than just a few domes built on this moon. Every single one on their own very small island, as to stop any survivors from escaping. At the center of the domes, you can find the main killing machine, an elevator that leads you into a room with moving basalt walls with a giant skull covered in blood. If you actually want to get to the facility, you can take the side corridors. But the danger is far from over, because for those who don't know, every moon has an inside power point system, with entities taking usually 1 to 3 points depending on the difficulty. This moon's power reaches a whopping 69 points. As reference, Etern overwhelms you with mimics and nutcrackers with only 20 points, meaning the Demetrica interior is extremely dangerous, but very rewarding. If you are willing to take the risk of exploring the Demetrica's domes, you will mostly find clothes or wallets and sometimes saw blades covered in blood, as well as other human remains like bones and skulls. Once you try to leave, you will have to go back to the corridors, and you better hope that there aren't blind dogs or coilheads in your way. Anyway, we finally finished the 3 paths, and we still have 2 moons to go. But what to do from here? It seems like the only way to continue forward is to go back to the beginning. Remember the secret passage under the stairs that I mentioned at the beginning? Well, it's now that it becomes important. One of the loot bug statues next to the stairs seems to be facing the wrong direction. When interacting with it, you will be able to put it back correctly like the other statues. This will move the stairs to reveal a long and dark storage room. This storage room is also home to a very chill butler. He doesn't really do much. He just keeps pressing the same spot, and by looking at all of the cobwebs on the ceiling, it doesn't seem like he's doing a very good job. But at least he isn't hostile. Anyway, at the back of the room you can find a massive locked door with 4 different spots to insert an apparatus, which will unlock the door. But the normal apparatuses seem to be too small to insert into them, which means we will need to find 3 powerful ones to insert, since one can already be shoved in. Thankfully, the 3 names are given to us, with all of them relating to one of the final moons. The Royal Apparatus from Calist, the Cosmic Apparatus from Cosmocos, and the Bloody Apparatus from Demetrica. For the Royal Apparatus, you will need to find a fire exit from inside the building on Calist that leads to the bottom side of the asteroid, where you will need to parkour across floating rocks to reach the apparatus. Since the daylight switches constantly on this moon, the apparatus weighing a bit, and the fact that it takes up half your screen, will be quite difficult to bring back to the ship. The second one is the Cosmic Apparatus on Cosmocos. For this one you will also need to find a fire exit that leads to a new area. This will lead you to where the brain of Cosmocos is located. You can find the apparatus next to it, though taking it will anger Cosmocos. You will have to make it back to the ship with all of the floating eyes having turned red, frantically looking around in unpredictable ways. The last one is a Bloody Apparatus from Demetrica. For this one you will need a jetpack and a lockpick, since it is located in the middle of the killing room. When you arrive at the center, fly up to the wall to grab the apparatus. There is a door to escape at the back, but you will need a lockpick to open it. Thank God they left a generic door to escape. You can now bring back all 3 special apparatuses back to Galetry. Once all inserted, the door will open, revealing just a videotape named X. I wonder what's so special about this one. Higgs is a barren moon with a dead ecosystem. There are a lot of craters filled with red coloring that I'll touch on in a minute. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but there's the little guy in the sky looking at us. And from what I could gather, he's the one that started the war. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For now, let's just call him Jerry. Higgs seems to be one of the planets he conquered, explaining why he resides here. And I don't think he enjoys our presence, lashing out at us with tentacles that come out of the red craters that try to kill us from time to time. Jerry probably acts as a sort of hive mind, since the tentacles aren't directly connected to him. In the center you can find a very peculiar area with floating stones, which makes the surrounding area devoid of color. The door in the middle leads us into the facility but isn't connected to anything, acting more like a portal. The inside part has also no color anymore, giving it a very surreal look. Inside you will find mainly two things: parts of dead entities covered in some red growth, and translated messages, presumably from Jerry. The former are called assimilated parts, meaning that those parts have been digested in some way. There is also something called the seed of assimilation, which looks like a red pulsing egg, resembling the stuff on the entity's parts and in the craters. What its purpose is isn't very clear. There are 4 short translated messages that give us a lot of context.
The seed are brooding. Humans are interfering. The seed must grow. I will become all. All becomes me. Assimilation.
Jerry wants to fuse with everything, for some reason. Probably just his kink. But in his quest to do so, he kept getting stopped by humans, which started to annoy him in his quest of assimilation.
Containing my creation. The company surrounds me, halting the growth. The anger consumes. The region will fall. The Emperor is mine.
From this, it seems like Jerry is a similar creature to the one residing in the company, needing scrap to survive and grow. But with the company sending scavengers closer and closer to him, making it more difficult for him to grow, he decided he will bring down the people causing him the trouble. His first target being the Emperor.
Humans are prone to destroy themselves. All it takes is a little influence. An emperor. A conflict. A spark. My influence.
Jerry, being a very smart boy, knowing that the biggest threat to the human race is themselves, decided to target the highest person of power, so that when he gets them under his finger, everybody else would follow. He probably achieved that by using a seed of assimilation, acting a bit like a mind-controlling parasite, like the cosmic growth. This explains why the Emperor was often described as being lifeless during the meetings approaching the war. When the Emperor was talking to a person called the Overseer, that person probably was Jerry.
The region has fallen. I have succeeded. I have grown. I have taken this place. Take my seed. Bring it to another. Let me take you. Let me grow. Let me assimilate.
As we know, Jerry succeeded in his plan, causing countless deaths with the war, using it as a distraction for him to grow and take over the planet. It is unknown if the Dominions or Jerry were the one responsible for the domes of the Demetrica. You can also find a videotape that leads us to the residence of the Emperor.
Happiness is the one who made your money. Happiness is the one who created your job. Happiness is the one who protects you. Happiness is the Emperor. And if you work hard enough, you will be personally invited to live in his golden city. Happiness is Empra. Empra is happiness.
Empra, also known as the City of Gold, is the final destination of the main story, home to people that have high power in our society. This includes, of course, the Emperor. Empra is now completely empty, being nothing more than a lifeless city in the middle of nowhere. Seeing by the giant seed of a simulation in the middle of the entrance, it seems to have been taken over by the terrifying Jerry, as his new main place of gold, since this place is filled to the brim with riches, like gold and jewels. To enter the city, you will have to use a platform that leads you to the entrance to the heavy sandstorms. It isn't very fast, but at least you get the pleasuring view of slowly approaching this opposing city. It is also required to enter so you can bash the tentacles blocking the entrance. I will take this little moment to say that this moon looks gorgeous. The city standing afar when you land with the sun flying across the ground is just mwah. That's without mentioning the inside of the city with the broken platforms and the sky-high buildings. Anyway, as I already said, this place is filling with expensive treasures to collect. And although gathering all of it is quite nice, there is another thing we can do here. In one of the buildings high up that you can reach by jetpack or by finding the fire exit from inside, has a panel with various buttons and levers. One of them allows you to shoot one of the mortars. You'll have to align it by tilting it over so that it is pointed towards the seed in the middle. Once broken, you will hear a distant scream. Tentacles will start emerging, trying to feel around by any intruder, and the mighty Jerry will appear from above, slowly approaching. This leads us to our final mission, putting an end to Jerry. If you don't know what to do, then don't worry, I have created for you an easy to follow 12-step plan to guarantee his defeat. Step 1. Arrive and admire the beautiful scenery. Step 2. Carefully and quietly enter the city. Step 3. Move the mortar next to the entrance so that it is pointed to Jerry's unborn son. Step 4. Find a fire exit inside that leads you to the control room. Step 5. Blow up the seed. Step 6. Move the crane into position. Step 7. Find the apparatus and an atomic bomb called Huge Herald. Step 8. Place the apparatus and the herald on the platform. Step 9. Lift the tracks with the control panel. Step 10. Go back to the ship with your boosted minecart. Step 11. Take one last selfie with Jerry. Step 12. Send Jerry an explosive gift.
Hello. You're awake. What a wonderful day it is, don't you think? Must have been a while since you last saw the outside. You have a visitor. He claims to know you well. You are not the first to end up here, nor the last for that matter. Terrible things happen to those who work for the company. So many came before you. So many haven't made change. Not you. You are different. You have been rewarded with another month added to your contract. You made it, but you're not done yet. He's here.
So yeah, this is the ending of the mod. It's the classic, was it all just in my head or not, who knows, kinda ending. The man that appears at the end of the cutscene is the same person that appears in one of the old intros of Lethal Company. We still have no idea who this man is since the game isn't finished yet, so there's not a lot I can say. There's also the possibility of it being a sort of post-credit scene of us returning after killing Jerry. But like most endings in horror games and movies, there isn't really one definitive answer. It's just how you interpret it. At the end of the cutscene, you can see that the city has crumbled down, with lots of debris scattered everywhere. And with no way to traverse the sandstorm anymore, all you can do is leave to go enjoy the rest of the moons. Thank you for watching until the end. This has been a project in the making for almost 2 months. I didn't really have a lot of knowledge in making videos or editing when I started this project, so hopefully it isn't too noticeable. Personally, I think I did a pretty good job. The editing isn't very complex and I'm not the best when it comes to articulating, but I'm still very proud of this video. I don't think I'm gonna really start with the second part anytime soon, since I'm gonna be busy with school and exams and stuff like that. So I imagine I will have finished it somewhere in August, but I'm not guaranteeing anything. Anyway, don't forget to check out the mod by Wesley and his team of talented people. He worked on this for around 2 years, releasing somewhat frequent updates that added a bunch of more and expanded on the story he was trying to tell. But I do believe that the mod is now finished, just a small balancing and bug fix update that pops up from time to time. And if you somehow haven't already bought Lethal Company, I hope this video convinced you that this game has a lot of potential of being an even more immersive game than it already is. Since the game is still in early access, there will still be updates that expands and improves it. Maybe Wesley could make moons based on new enemies or mechanics when they come out. Just saying. Small shout out to my friend Antoff for making the thumbnail. He does drawing as a side gig and I was absolutely speechless when he made this. So yeah, big thanks to him. Anyway, I have already wasted more than an hour of your life, so again, thank you very much for watching some random guy blabber about some other random guy's mod. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.